A U.S. federal judge has ruled that President Donald Trump's former White House counsel Don McGhan must testify to the House of Representatives in its impeachment probe. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote that, quote, presidents are not kings, and said that the president, quote, does not have the power to excuse McGhan or any other current and former White House officials from testifying before Congress. AP's Sega Megani has more.
A federal judge says former White House counsel Don McGhan must comply with a subpoena to appear before Congress. It's a setback to President Trump's efforts to keep top aides from testifying before lawmakers. The judge writes presidents are not kings and do not have the power to excuse aides from complying with a valid congressional subpoena. His lawyer says McGhan will comply unless a court stays the ruling, which the White House says it will appeal. It's argued in the past McGhan and other top officials have absolute immunity from testifying. The judge says no such immunity exists. McGhan was a star witness in the Mueller probe, and Democrats wanted to talk with him about potential obstruction of justice by the president. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Mr. McGhan, who was White House counsel until he resigned a year ago, was named in the former special counsel Robert Mueller's report on suspected collusion between the Trump campaign and Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. For more on what this ruling means, I'm joined by VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson. Catherine, a federal judge decided yesterday that President Donald Trump's former White House counsel, Don McGhan, must testify to the House of Representatives in its impeachment inquiry or probe. Now, some analysts have said that this ruling was a clear denunciation. Others have called it a rebuke of the executive branch's claim that it has absolute power. The judge's language was pretty strong, right?
It most certainly was. One line that really stood out to me from this judge in her ruling is where she said that the chief theme of American history of the past 250 years is that our presidents are not kings and that their aides do not owe their loyalty to the president the way they would to a king. They owe their loyalty to the U.S. Constitution and to the country itself, and that helped guide her as she made this decision.
So what does this mean now? Does this mean that Don McGhan is going to appear before Congress? Is there an appeal process to this? And is this likely to end in the Supreme Court?
Here's where it gets a little bit trickier. So even though the judge did rule that McGhan has to testify, it already has gone to an appeals court here in the United States. I would expect the administration to keep fighting it as we go through this process. We also know that House Democrats have already said that they are not going to wait for the president to drag this whole issue out in the courts. They are moving forward with impeachment. And of course, here's the other issue. This Don McGhan ruling is related to the Mueller report. What we're investigating now in the U.S. House of Representatives related to impeachment is the Trump-Ukraine issue, the Trump-Ukraine scandal. Right. So they're actually two separate issues. Democrats are not going to want to wait for this to slow down in the courts through the appeals process.
But is there anything in Don McGhan's testimony that would further advance their case for impeachment?
It would possibly help build a background of corruption and obstruction of justice. You know, Adam Schiff, who's the House Intelligence Committee chairman, has talked about obstruction of justice as a possible article of impeachment that House members could vote on. But I'm not seeing the possibility that he could come before Congress soon enough for that to be a possibility. What it does do is push other members of the administration who have failed to answer subpoenas in the Trump-Ukraine impeachment issue.
But what are the wider implications of this ruling? Aside from Don McGhan, who else does this ruling affect?
Well, it could certainly impact Mick Mulvaney, other national security White House aides who have failed to answer subpoenas at the direct orders of President Trump. This reinforces House Democrats' case that nobody is above the law and that the legislative branch of the United States does have a mandate to investigate and hold the executive branch accountable.
And like you said yesterday, regardless of any additional testimonies, the committees seem to be, at this point, they have enough to draw up impeachment articles of impeachment?
We're close. So House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff sent out a letter yesterday saying that his committee is working on that report right now and that they expect that report to come out soon after Thanksgiving. What happens then is that the report goes to the House Judiciary Committee, who traditionally writes up articles of impeachment. We expect that process to be quite quick and for articles of impeachment to come up for a House floor vote by the end of December before lawmakers leave for their holiday break.
Catherine Gibson, thank you very much for speaking to us today.
You're so welcome.
That was VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson.